Morning, church.
Morning.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
2021, it happened. We made it. Yes, praise the Lord. We made it to whatever this is. So there you go. But no, seriously, I don't know if it felt like this for you, but for me, it was one of those, like, I don't get it every New Year, but this year, for some reason, and it was like the most low-key New Year's ever, but when it turned over, it was like it turned over. You know what I mean? Like, yes, we made it. And then I went to bed. It was great. But Happy New Year. Those of you that are joining us on the online campus, Happy New Year to you. We are so grateful that we get to do this. We're here another year, and we're going to lean in together. I don't know what 2020 was for you. I know for me, there's a lot of good that came from it. There's a lot of growth. There's also a lot that I would love to leave in 2020 and press forward. But do you remember what we started 2020 with? Do you remember first set of messages in 2020 were on rhythms? And for me, like, little did I know how much I would need healthy rhythms. I can honestly say I was just chatting with somebody recently, and I was telling them, they were asking me just about 2020 and what was one of the best things to come from it. And for me, it was realizing how important my rhythms are, my spiritual rhythms, spiritual habits, spiritual formations, spiritual practices, whatever language you are familiar with, but just how important those were and how I would not have made it the way I made it had it not been for those being in place. And, you know, it's one of those things, you look back on 2020 and we didn't see it coming, then we can look back now. But with rhythms in place going, I wonder if 2021 is just, we need to slow down and, hey, let's restart. Let's re-step in. Let's remind ourselves of some things in a fresh way that we're going to stand on. Because I'm sure for everyone, we can look back on 2020 and go, man, I did that really well. That not so good. I wish I could change those things. Oh, I wish I was prepared for that. I wish, whatever that happens to be, I'm sure we've all got our own things. But I wonder if 2021, we start now and we're looking forward going, I can't change what's here, but I can build to what's there. And so as we stand kind of in this place going, okay, what does it look like for you? What is the legacy that you want to leave in 2021? What is it that you want to get done with 2021 and go, okay, I took strides towards whatever large legacy out in the future, what your life is about, what you want to be known for, what does that look like? What can you put in place today that will help you move there? And it's fascinating. This whole thing reminds me of sandcastles. You ever built one? Anybody ever built a sandcastle? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You're my kind of person. I want to meet you on the beach because here's what happens. In our world, we go to the beach in the summer, and which is weird talking about the summer when it's like, 20 degrees outside? But we go to the beach in the summer, and my little kids, Bailey and Farrah, they're 9 and 7, go, it's sandcastle time. And so they love to play hours just down by the water's edge building sandcastles. But whenever I get involved, I just have this problem. I don't know if you share the same problem, but my sandcastle is not going to be ordinary. You know what I mean? It's not going to be just put the sand in the mold, flip the mold, and that's what you got. First of all, if you do that and part of the tower doesn't go, you have to knock it down and start again, right? And get it right. On top of that, there has to be design elements. You got to think this thing through. Because there's a lot of people that are walking the beach, and you better believe my sandcastle is going to beat your sandcastle, because that's just the way God made it, right? So here's how it works, right? You begin to build it. Well, I got 2 little ones, and so they begin the scavenger hunt. They're collecting twigs, and they're collecting shells, and anything that they can find, and sometimes it's people's belongings, and it comes, and you're going to begin to put it on the sandcastle. Now, their design elements aren't necessarily what mine would be. You know what I mean? If they find 500 shells, all 500 shells have to go on whatever you're building. And so when you get done, inevitably, you build this thing out and you get it to where it's going. Of course, you have to have a moat because you know there are a lot of people out to get your sandcastle on the beach. So you've got to have that moat. And if you get the right ones, you can put crabs in that moat, then they really get it, right? So anyways, you got your sandcastle, you get it perfect, and then somebody decides to throw a football. And inevitably, it breaks your sandcastle. But let's say your sandcastle survives, and it makes it all day, and it's pristine, and all the passersby have got to observe your work. There's this thing called the tide. You ever notice what the tide does? The tide doesn't care about what's in its way. And the tide comes in, and you ever watch what it begins to do? It just destabilizes the stuff around it. And slowly the sand begins to melt back into the sand. And if you come back the next day, it's like you never did the work that was there in the first place. Here's what's really fascinating. I don't think that there's anyone in this room that would go, hey, where do I sign up for a castle of sand life? Where do I stand up and build my life out of sand and make my castle and know it's going to crumble? There's nobody in the room that would go, hey, that's me. It doesn't matter if you've been in church your whole life. It doesn't matter if you've been in church a little while. It doesn't matter if this is your first day. If it is your first day, by the way, welcome. We're glad you're here. My name's John. Now we've met. But seriously, it doesn't matter. There's no one here that goes, hey, I want to build a life that will crumble. There's no one starting 2021 going, okay, how can I screw this thing up? Point me in the direction of messing up this life. If we sat and we took the time in silence and went, okay, write down what's really, really, really important to you about the future. And then, what if today I can give you a guarantee? And I'm not a big guarantee guy when it comes to the Bible. But what if I can give you a guarantee today that if you will, what we talk about today and what we talk about over the next weeks, if you will take those things, I can guarantee you an outcome. I can guarantee you, no matter what storms come, no matter what happens in your world, no matter how 2020 shows up, I can guarantee you that your life, your castle will stand. Would you be in? There's not a person, I doubt there's a person that goes, nah, sounds good, but I'll let my life crumble. Thanks, bro. If you have a Bible, the words of Jesus we're going to dive into are in chapter 7 of Matthew. If you don't have a Bible, by the way, and you want one, we got some for you. That HC new that you saw to 94,000, you can do that. People will be in touch with you. We'll get one to you. But here's the thing. If not, you can follow along on the screen. That's all good too. Context we're about to jump into, Jesus has been teaching for a while. Jesus has talked about a whole bunch of stuff that's relevant to human life. For example, the first thing that he talks about is who exactly is God on the side of? So who is God for? And he begins that conversation by saying God is on the side, God is for those that are the spiritual zeros, if you like. If you showed up today and you're like, I'm depleted spiritually. If you showed up today and you go, I don't even know if I should be in church. I got good news for you. Jesus starts out his whole talk on, hey, I'm on the side of those that are spiritually bankrupt, that don't have it together, that don't think they're something. I'm on the side of them. I'm also on the side of the peacekeepers. I'm also on the side of the meek and the humble. And then he rolls on from there and he gets into stuff like salt and light. And he starts talking about how, hey, you are the light of the world. That people should be able to see you and see God. He rolls on from there and talks about an eye for an eye. And within the eye for the eye thing, he flips it. He goes, hey, you've heard eye for an eye. I'm telling you, if someone hits this cheek, give them the other one. In fact, if someone sues you for your jacket, give them your shirt as well. And if a soldier wants to make you walk 1 mile, go another mile with them. He talks about things like adultery. And he says, I know you think you know what adultery is, but let's take it a step back. That if you decide within your soul to look lustfully at a woman And in that context, right, he goes, hey, if in that context you've committed adultery. And then he goes into divorce, and he goes into some other things like loving your enemies. He talks about prayer, that hey, if you're going to pray, don't do it so everybody can see you. Actually go in your closet. Hey, if you're going to give to the needy, don't let your left hand know what your right hand's doing. Do it so secretively. Don't do things for others to see. So he goes through all these teachings. He goes through all this stuff that is relevant to our day-to-day living. And then he gets to the end of his sermon, if you like, his message, and he says this in verse 24. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, the wind blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. He gets all the way through his teaching, gets to the end, and he goes, hey, therefore, everyone. You know what's fascinating about the word everyone? Like if you go and research this in the original language, guess what it means? Everyone. All people. Okay, hold up. All people. So we talked about earlier, we talked about people that have been in church a really long time. If that's you and you grew up in a church like I did, and you can feel sorry for me later, you know a song about this passage, about the wise and the foolish builders, and what happens when you build your life on this versus that, and you even got actions to it. There you go. Some of you at home are singing because no one can hear you. But here's the thing. If you've been in church a really long time, or you just walked through for the very first time, and you're like, it's 2021. 2020 wasn't so good. I'm going to try something new. I'm going to go to church. Where do I go? How do I get? And you don't know. You just showed up here. Maybe somebody brought you through the door, and you're going, I don't even know what this is. Again, welcome. But you're also included. Therefore, everyone. That's all people. That means there's no one in this room, no one outside of this room through screens, no one later listening just from the sound of the microphone. Everyone that hears this, you are included today. Jesus is talking to you. Therefore, everyone, all people. What that means, how that translates, and now I'm going to give you some bad news. You have a responsibility. I have a responsibility. Because everybody, therefore everyone who hears these words of mine. See, here's what's scary. If you've been in church a really long time, you've heard an awful lot of words. Guess what that means? You've been given a stewardship of all of those words. For what? And put them into practice. Put them into practice. Wait. John, so you're telling me, I've been hanging around church for a real long time. I've heard you a bunch. I've heard Ron a bunch. I've heard the others a bunch. I listen to speakers. And now we live in a day and age, by the way, that you can consume information all of the time. Think how scary that is. You can consume messages from the minute you wake up to the minute you go to bed and never listen to the same one anymore. You can consume books upon books upon books upon books on the words of Jesus. You can consume the word for yourself, because if you can read and you sit there, you got it. You can listen to it. You can hear all these words of God in this narrative that we've been given by God, that we've been left, that you better thought of as a love story. We've been given all of this, but here's the thing. Jesus is saying, hey, if you've heard the words of mine, then guess what? There is a responsibility for you to do something with those words you've heard. That's a little overwhelming, if I'm honest. But I love that he uses the word practice. these words of mine and puts them into practice. Practice carries with it the nature of habit. It's something I do on a consistent basis. It's something that when I'm faced with a certain thing, here's the reaction that I'm going to have. Jesus is saying, hey, take these words of mine and put them into your daily life. The literal meaning is do words. Take the words and make them come to life. And so in this context, he goes, hey, these words of mine, put them into practice. Create habits. Create habits around these words. Well, what would that look like? Well, we talked about a few. God is on the side of who? The spiritual zeros. See, if you walk through the door today and you think you're something because of how you're living, or you think you're something because of yours in the game, the Christian game, so to speak, or you think you're something because of all your spiritual accomplishments, then you need to understand something. God is on the side of those that recognize that, man, I'm walking through the door needing Jesus as much today as I did when I first started. How do I put that into practice? I walk with humility. I wake up every morning and choose to sit down and remind myself of the story I exist in and not the story that I'm getting told on the news. You guys, I don't know about you, but I'm really tired of the news telling me my story. I'm really tired of this rhetoric around us telling us our story. And if we don't choose to frame it up by the words that are true in the narrative here that have stood the test of time, then here's the problem. If we don't choose to stand here, then we're going to stand somewhere else. You realize we're taking in, we're hearing all the time, and we're acting on what we're hearing. You know, we all have the same materials. You ever thought about this? We all have the same materials that we build our life with. It's what we hear and what we do with it. And that comes out in speech sometimes. That comes out in actions towards others and all that kind of stuff. And in Jesus' context, he's saying, hey, think about this for a second. Take the words of mine and put them into practice. Okay, Jesus, so creating habits, creating practices. I love that the word is practice, not perfection. He's not expecting you to take his words and put them into perfection. He's expecting you to take his words. And you ever notice with practice, I used to coach soccer for a long time. You know what I would tell the girls in practice? Hey, try that here. That thing that you wouldn't try in a game, try it here. Why? Because it doesn't matter if you fail. I love the word practice. Because in practice, what we get to step into is I heard this from Jesus and I begin to create a habit from it. And I begin to walk in that habit. So Jesus, you tell me that adultery isn't the physical act. It actually takes place in my soul way before that. Can I create a habit that helps me take those words of Jesus and put it into practice on a daily basis in my life? You betcha. Hey, Jesus, you tell me about murder. That murder isn't just the act of murdering somebody. It's actually the act within my soul of anger towards that person where essentially I wish that they would have harm. I wish that they would be dead. That can I create a habit? Take the words of Jesus and create a habit that my responses when I'm faced with anger, I choose to put it into practice in a much different way. Oh, love your enemies. Seems like everybody's got enemies these days. We should have plenty of people to love. Love your enemies. How do I create a habit of loving my enemies? Prayer. How do I create a habit of prayer? Man, if Jesus needed prayer, how much more do we need prayer? What about giving to the needy, getting to the point where my left hand doesn't know what my right hand's doing because just giving to the needs around me is something that is so natural that I don't even know when I'm doing it anymore? Can I create habits? Now listen, because this is what he's saying. Everyone, all people who hear these words of mine and put them into practice, create habits around their life from them. Is like a wise man. That word wise man is someone who they exercise on a consistent basis sound judgment, right? So I put the words of Jesus into practice and I become someone that exercises every single moment around me sound judgment in my decision making, in my walking, in how I treat people, in what I do in representation of my life. Who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall because it had its foundation on the rock. You want a guarantee? Your guarantee is if you will take the words of Jesus and I will put them into practice, I will build habits in my life around the words of Jesus. The outcome in my life is that when things show up that are expected, like rain's expected, wind is expected. You know what's not expected? The stream that comes, we call them flash floods because you don't see them coming. They're there in a flash. You see, in those days in Palestine, you built dwellings in the desert. And what would happen is, depending on where you built your dwelling, out of nowhere, rain could happen somewhere where you couldn't see and a stream would come and it would wash your dwelling completely away. In this context, the dwelling is your life. You have the same materials as anyone else. You choose what you listen to. You choose what you put into place, what habits you put into place. What Jesus is saying is anyone who hears my words and puts them into practice is like this person who exercises sound judgment. That when the rain came and beat against their life, and when the wind came and beat against their life, and when that stream popped up that you didn't see coming, that wanted to sweep you away, you weren't moved. You weren't moved. Why? Because of what you built on. Let me ask you, what's your foundation today? What's your foundation look like? Is it money? Because if it is, all your decisions will be wrapped around making money. You know that, right? Your decision-making process. Is it relationships? Because if it is, all your decisions will be wrapped around probably a person and what that person wants and how that person, and you'll wrap everything around it to make sure you keep that. Is it success? Because you're chasing something only to get there and go, man, this was not what I thought it was. And see, what exposes it is 2020. You get that, right? What exposes the foundation of your life is 2020. And there are moments, if I'm real honest with you guys, like there are moments where I look at what it exposed to me and I go, man, I was standing on the wrong foundation. Man, that part feels like I'm on a rock. This part crumbled under the river that I never saw coming. What does your foundation look like? Because there's a guarantee here. And again, I'm not a big guarantee guy. But those who hear my words and put them into practice is like this person whose foundation is on a rock, that when all of these things around them went wrong, they stood firm. It makes me think of umbrellas, if I'm honest, and weddings. Those of you that don't know, you may be here for the first time. My daughter got married Monday. Yeah, we have a picture. Her only request was on a beach. We made it to a beach. Barely. We moved venues multiple times. We had bridesmaids cancel like 2 days before. One of them canceled because of COVID and you know, all that good stuff. And she got to a beach. There's a story behind this picture. And the story goes like this, that days before, 10 days out, because that's what you get on the weather app. Sunny day, sunny day, sunny day, sunny day, sunny day, sunny day, rain 70% chance on the wedding day. And man, I'm telling her, we're at home, and I'm like, hey, baby, you're going to be fine. And day after day, the percentage increases. And I'm like, it's going to be fine. It's California. Somebody's telling me, I'm from California. It blows right through. Awesome. So we're in the car on the way out there, and we're talking, her and I said, what are we going to do if it does rain? She said, well, I saw in this one picture these really cute, clear umbrellas. She goes, that would be great to have. And I'm like, okay, and we go on to other stuff and move on. And we get out there and wake up, and it's wedding day. And I look out the back into the yard where we're going to do the reception at this Airbnb we'd rented. And it's just running off the roof rain. Like it is pouring rain. And I'm like, well, I guess I got to go shopping for umbrellas. And so I head to the store, head to Target, and they gave me a shopping list, you guys. Okay, hang on one second, just because we got to relate a little bit. Bobby pins, ladies, are not an easy thing to figure out for us guys. I got sent to pick up bobby pins. I had no idea. You can get curved. You can get them for long hair. You can get them for short hair. You can get them different colors. I'm on the phone. What kind do you want? And then I had to get makeup remover wipes. Why is there so many types? That's all I want to know. So I'm on the phone again, and I can feel wedding stress building up. And then I have to get makeup, but it has to be a shade darker. Yeah. So I finally I got to get umbrellas, right? Where do you go for umbrellas? I'm from Arizona. Didn't even know what an umbrella was. Where do you go for umbrellas? So I went to the sporting goods. Went to the camping section, outdoors, right? Some of you are laughing. They're not there. You know where they are? In front of the women's changing rooms, fitting rooms, whatever they're called. Because apparently an umbrella is an accessory. And they've got a whole rack of these things, but all I can find look like this. They're black. Different sizes. So I call my daughter, and I'm like, hey, how many, actually I think I texted her and then I called, but I'm like, how many umbrellas we need? She's like 10. And I'm like, all they got is black. And I can hear, and I'm like, that's not good enough. It's not good enough. So I bought them from there to make sure I had umbrellas. That way we were guaranteed. And I'm like, I'm going to Walmart. Kudos to you if you work at Walmart. Because the lady there goes, yeah, we have umbrellas. And she walks me over, and wouldn't you know, these are sitting in Walmart. Well, maybe I can't open it, so hang on. Clear umbrellas. So I grabbed I grabbed 10 of them, and I got them under my arm, and I'm walking through Walmart, and this guy looks at me and goes, hey, you know if you buy those, it won't rain. I'm like, I'm counting on that, bro. I must have had 40 people that day tell me that, you know what, rain on a wedding day is good luck. That picture you saw before, there was a break in the clouds for about 3 hours. It was long enough for them to do a first look and get pictures in the sunlight together. And then for the wedding, the rain held off until the gentleman that was praying allowed him to kiss his bride. And then it dumped like no other. And I was like, I got umbrellas. And I'm handing them out like they're candy. But you know, if it hadn't happened, this picture wouldn't have happened. You guys, I wonder if some of us aren't living our lives. We've been told that clear is cute. And we gave up at black. What do I mean? You've been around church maybe, and you've heard somebody stand on stage with a mic and tell you that Jesus showed up to save you, that he showed up to rescue you from your own sin and brokenness, and you're sitting here and you know. Rescue sounds like the best thing on the planet. But instead of putting into practice the words of Jesus, you continue to sit in your brokenness because you won't put your trust in him. And so you settle for a black umbrella. For others, I mean, we talked about a lot of stuff today, you guys, and I'm way over time. I get it. But for others, you've been coming to church for a while, but your anger kills people daily. And you just live bitter and twisted and angry. But you don't have to. Jesus died to save you from that. Stop settling for a black umbrella. For others, lust has destroyed relationships. It'll destroy you later tonight. Maybe not tonight, maybe a week from now, because you're in a cycle. But Jesus died to set you free. You don't have to live in it. And it's habits that you put in place. Quit settling for black umbrellas. You've given yourself permission over the years to hate your enemies. But Jesus said, love your enemies. Quit settling for black umbrellas. You got somebody and they take advantage of you in every which way. You know what Jesus said? Give them the other cheek. And I'm not talking about abuse. Let me back up on that one for a second. I'm not talking about somebody who is abusing you. I'm talking about somebody in your life who's just toxic. Quit giving them permission. Quit settling for black umbrellas. Your prayer life, you complained for years about your prayer life. I'm right there with you. Quit settling for black umbrellas. Generosity being a marker of your life. And you're like, I'll be generous when I have more. No, you won't. It doesn't work that way. Generosity starts today. It starts with a soul opening to God. It starts with me recognizing inside of this story right here that a generous God stepped across a universe to give me what I did not have for myself. Quit settling for black umbrellas. This year, you guys, this year, 2021 Heights Church family, you know what we are going to do all year long? Because we don't know what's around the corner. And to be honest with you, I don't care. Because all I care about is if I take this and I do what Jesus says, then whatever's coming, we're going to be fine. And so we're going to take the words of Jesus, which means we are going to soak ourselves every single time we gather in any format at Heights Church. We are going to soak ourselves in the narrative of God. Why? Because we need to understand at a soul level the words of Jesus, the words of God. And then we are going to put ourselves in intentional community. Intentional relationships. That might be one-on-one. That might be with a group that's a specialist group. That might be within the life groups family. But we're going to put ourselves intentionally in relationships where we can grow. And then we are going to hold each other accountable to take the words, take what we are in, and put it deep into the actions and the habits of our life. That we would be a people, that we would be a church, that we would be God's disciples who are standing on the rock that is Jesus, who has changed everything. So what's your legacy? Because your habits of consistency determine your legacy of tomorrow. So what habits are we going to build today? God, we come before you. God, thank you for this family. Thank you for this tribe. Thank you for this Heights body, your church, your bride, your people. God, thank you that we get to journey together. Thank you that we are better with you. Thank you that at the start of 2021, God, we have your words washing over us. That God, we do not have to be foolish builders today. But God, we take your words and we put them into action. And over the next weeks, as we begin to look at individual ones, God, would you build this family strong on the foundation of Jesus and Jesus alone. Thank you for loving us. Thank you for rain and umbrellas that remind us of who you are in the midst of storms of our life. Thank you for grace and mercy. It's in your name. Everybody said, amen.